Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
It's dangerous to go alone. So here, take this podcast. We're talking about The Legend of Zelda today. We're going to be talking a lot about the original entry in the series, as well as the series as a whole. But, here we are at episode 99 of this podcast, and we're finally doing the subject that is our cover art. It's a little pixelated picture of me as Link, as evidenced by my bald head and green eyes that you can't see because this is a podcast. And, what is nostalgia if not a link to the past? So I think it's fitting here that on the precipice of episode 100, we're talking about this property. But I am, of course, not going alone. As I said, I've got two companions here with me. He has been on many prior podcasts. He is a performer with West Side Comedy Theater. He teaches improv. You've heard him here if you've been listening to this show plenty. Please welcome back Rich Baker.
Always happy to be back, Doug. Thanks for having me.
And from our episode on 16-bit Disney video games, all the way from the UK, the host of the Spectrum Days podcast. Please welcome back Philip Head.
Hello, everybody.
So, Phil, I'm going to start with you here and talking about your nostalgic memories of Zelda, which I imagine, one, are possibly a little different because I know Nintendo releases were a little different across the pond where you are. So, yeah, I'll just kick it to you. You wanted to cover Zelda today, so tell us why.
Thanks for blaming it on me, Doug. I was rather worried you were going to introduce me as Navi or one of the other irritating people. That's supposed to. Yeah, exactly. I was
Tell us about Zelda.
But yeah, you're right in saying that, and it was what actually concerned me, and made me think when I suggested that perhaps we do this. I suddenly thought, oh yeah, it's going to be really different to my cousins across the pond, and yeah, mainly because we just did get everything that much later than you guys did. I mean, let's face it, Japan got everything first, but yeah, we probably got, I don't know, even the NES was several years probably after you had it, and this game, I don't know, was it 86, 87 over there?
86 in Japan, 87 in the US, but I'm not sure about the UK.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, that's coupled with getting everything later than you did. The Nintendo just wasn't as big over here. Certainly not the NES. It wasn't as big a system. I'm struggling to think of anyone I knew as a kid who had one. We were, as far as consoles go, it was the Master System. It was sort of a Sega thing really that was going on over here. So if you want to talk about the first Zelda, I don't have much to say about it when it was current. Really, the very first time I remember hearing about Zelda was actually the second one, which obviously by that time the NES was probably starting to get a little bit more traction over in the UK. And there was it might have been some crisps, which I believe you guys call chips, over there. I think they had a sort of offer where you could win a Nintendo, and the game that was obviously the big game at the time was Zelda 2. So that was my sort of first hearing of it, really.
And so what was the first Zelda title you actually got your hands on?
Well, that was the one that we talked about when we said about doing the podcast, which is Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. That's really when Nintendo started getting bigger as far as home consoles in the UK. I would say prior to that, the Game Boy, actually, if we're going to talk consoles, probably was what really broke Nintendo over here, certainly from a personal point of view. But yeah, home console, it was a Super Nintendo, and it was Link to the Past, which I still consider probably one of my favourite of the series, really.
Did you play Link's Awakening on the Game Boy as well back then, or is that something you've never touched? Or
yeah, no, I did, but I struggled to think when. But I remember playing it, and I bought the remake on the Switch.
Well, tell me a little bit about, like, you wanted to talk about Zelda today. Obviously, this is something that means a lot to you. I'm curious about, why that is. What's the personal connection other than just, yeah, they're awesome?
It's warm and fuzzy, like you, Doug. I don't know. There's something.
Where do you see me with my shirt off? Much more fuzzy.
For those of you who are only listening and can't see us, he's already got it off.
Yeah. This is why I chose an audio medium, because I can be free and be myself.
Yeah, I had heard it was warm over there. Yeah. Speaking from here now, this point, and the whole point of these sorts of podcasts is not a million miles from what I do on our podcast. There is something very genuinely warm and fuzzy about Zelda. I don't really know why. I guess maybe we'll find out by the end of the podcast. But I distinctly remember seeing Link to the Past. For those of you who don't know and didn't see the other podcast, I used to work in the industry selling games. And I remember putting it into the machine and it coming up on the screen, and it's the Triforce segments sort of arrange themselves onto the screen with that sort of tinkly sort of sting sort of music. And just being really impressed by that. I mean, immediately, there was something very immediate about that. And I don't really think I'd played. It's not an RPG. I always get confused. I know how you describe these things, whether it's an RPG or an action adventure, or I'm not even sure we called it anything like that back then. It would have just been the next game that was coming out. And I think it was the first game I'd played like that, which seemed. The parlance now would be open world. I know it isn't, but it seemed like you could go anywhere, and it was a huge map and just the vastness of it. Yet at the same time, these little instances of talking to characters, and again, now it seems ridiculous. Now you could almost have a game with AI characters that really do talk to you, but at the time, yeah, it felt like. It felt like a real world that you're inhabiting. I think that was really why.
Did you ever work your way back around to the NES titles, one or two?
Well, again, because I was selling the stuff, yeah, they eventually did come in. But as I say, the Nintendo just wasn't as popular. But every title that came in had to be tested, because this is second-hand I'm talking about here. These are pre-owned games that we were selling. So, yeah, I played, everything, if you see what I mean, right, across the years that I was there. But I didn't find the attraction. I thought I was kind of spoilt, I suppose, in playing A Link to the Past. It just, I don't know, it was far more accessible, certainly to me, not to everyone. I think this is the danger in talking about Zelda. We're going to be treading on eggshells. It's such an emotive subject for gamers. I think everyone's got a favourite, everyone's got one they hate, everyone's got a style that they like. The hating Toon Link when it came out on the GameCube and all these things. I don't know, it's a very fraught subject.
It's weird, yeah. I know if you inhabit online gaming forums and stuff, and if you post, what's the best Zelda game, get ready for an argument that is far more angry than it should be. But yeah, people have very strong opinions about which ones are the best and not. But Rich, let me circle back to you, because I know we've talked about doing a Zelda podcast, because I know these games mean a lot to you, especially 1 and 2, which I think are the only ones you've played, right?
Yeah, so when Nintendo came out, I got it fairly early on. I think I mentioned in previous podcasts, and it came. My console came with a 3-in-1 game. It was Super Mario, Duck Hunt, and World Track Meet, because mine came with the Power Pad. And so those are my first 3 games. But the first game that I bought beyond the one that came with it was that golden cartridge, Zelda, the first Zelda game. And I just remember, like, I don't think there were many cartridges that were a different color than any of the other ones on the regular Nintendo.
It was
other
very
than
rare.
Zelda.
Yeah.
And so it literally shined, and it was everything I wanted in a game. It was swords and goblins and elves and kingdoms and running around and doing things. And just like what Phil was saying, it was, it was the first time in a game where you could really just kind of go wherever you want. Let me go back here, and you could kind of just waste time doing it. Whereas on like a Ninja Gaiden or like Tyson's Punch-Out or any of these other awesome games that, it was very much like you had to do this in this time limit or you lost. And Zelda was like, let's just go. And the first one was really good and I liked it a lot, but it was so much. But for some reason, the second one really grabbed me like a lot more. I don't know what it is. There's something about that overworld map into the smaller ones, and that the 2D side scrolling once you got into a thing, but then it was the overworld map outside of it and all the different things you had to do. And something about that Zelda 2, and it was also a golden cartridge as well. It was, so I guess there were only two different colored cartridges, but they really grabbed me, and just the general storylines. And also, I think, and I don't know if this ever made to the UK, Phil, but in the US we did have a Zelda cartoon for a short time that hit when I was around 8 or 9, and I just remember looking forward to that every Friday.
This is the Triforce of Wisdom, Link. The evil wizard Ganon has the Triforce of Power. Whoever gets both Triforces will rule this land forever. You must help me, Link.
Hey, for you, Zelda, anything.
Hero.
Hey, excuse me, princess.
I do remember that. Yeah. My nostalgic memories of Zelda do start with Zelda 1. I never owned 1 or 2 for some reason. But I remember being pretty young, and the kid who lived across the street from me had it. And so I remember lots of times just going over to his house to play Zelda 1. My cousin had Zelda 2. I had less time to play that, but I remember playing it at their house. But one thing that ties Zelda 1 and 2 together that the series really didn't pick back up again until Breath of the Wild, the first one on the Switch, was this sense of inscrutability and really just kind of openness and exploration. We'll sort of talk about it when we get into the deeper, more granular level of the mechanics, but basically following Link to the Past and Beyond up through Breath of the Wild, there's kind of a prescriptiveness to these games where there's sort of, you can wander around and go anywhere, but there's actually a set of steps they really want you to do. They want you to find certain items in a certain order that will unlock different parts of the map. It's more secretly like a Metroidvania game than you realize, to the point where I think by Skyward Sword, the last one before Breath of the Wild, people were a little frustrated that this formula had become kind of stale. And it's interesting that by going back to what made 1 and 2 special, which is this feeling of like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. They kind of recaptured the magic of what Shigeru Miyamoto was looking for all along, which was when he developed this game, he developed it based on his own wanderings around as a kid, like wandering through fields and caves and finding this lake he didn't know was there. Like that was the emotion he wanted to pack into this game, and it's right there in Zelda 1. Like from the first minute you boot up the game, and after the title screen, you're just dropped onto the map. There's 3 ways you can go, plus this little cave, which is where you actually really need to go. And that's it. After that, it's just go do Zelda things.
Yeah, there's something about, and then it was one of the only games, if I recall, that had where you had a top-down view. That was pretty rare, I think, back then too. So that was kind of different. And then the first time you shoot the sword and a little thing comes out, I remember thinking that was the coolest thing. Like, my sword's also a gun.
Yeah, that is if you're at full health in Zelda 1, when you swing your sword, it shoots out this little beam projectile that helps you take out the enemies. But if you haven't actually ever played one of these Zelda games, the traditional 2D Zelda, other than Zelda 2, which we'll talk about, is kind of an outlier in the way it's set up. It's from a top-down perspective. Each section of the map is a different tile, like almost like a room that you move between. And you wander around. There's secret little doors and caves that you may or may not know where they are. And your ultimate goal is to find 8 dungeons, go into them, slay the beast inside, collect a piece of the Triforce, and a weapon or tool that is inside that will enable you to make further progress into the game and ultimately rescue Zelda at Death Mountain. That's the loop. And other than that, it's so hands off.
Yeah, it's one of those where and it was frustrating to me as a kid. I remember just because I was like, I don't know what to do next, and that would be kind of the charm later. But at first, it was it felt like, because I didn't want to read the instruction booklet. I was a kid, and so and I don't even know if it would have said anything helpful necessarily, but it was just like, oh, you get to explore and just trial and error.
Did you make your own maps?
No.
Oh, okay.
Did you?
I seem to vaguely remember trying to map out this, if I'm here, then there's a square, because the game doesn't really give you a map. Eventually in Link to the Past, you can pull up a map, and it's still abstracted. It's not like a detailed map, but it gives you at least a sense of I'm kind of in the southwest part of this map, and some overall large scale features. But they would become a little better at that as it went on. Phil, how about you? Again, your experience with these first two, did you ever complete them, or were you enchanted by them at all, or were you just kind of you know what, I've got Link to the Past, I've got kind of the pinnacle of the 2D Zeldas, and I'm good to go?
Yeah, I think again it's a bit like I was saying earlier on, that sort of the rose tinted spectacles thing. Yeah, I did play the other ones, the NES ones. For me, the first one, again, having played Link to the Past sort of first, it felt like it just immediately die. It just felt it felt so cruel. It's like Link to the Past, you could wander around for hours as long as you didn't particularly interact with any of the sort of the guards or do anything very obviously that was going to cause attention. You could explore a lot of the area and talk to the NPCs and things like that. But the first one, as you say, you're plonked into the map, and I believe there's a whole load of enemies on the screen straight away, isn't there? You got the sort of the green hedges or trees or whatever they are, as you say, in the cavern at the top, and there's no guidance at all into what you're supposed to be doing, echoing what you're saying about the map. And so no, for me, the first one just seemed impenetrable. I had no idea what to do in it and just seemed to immediately die. Go off to the left, I think is there, and you're by the water, and then there's the things in the water that pop up and shoot projectiles out of the water. I just immediately die. To me, the first one, just completely impenetrable. Can't play it. I'm sure it's wonderful.
I've been playing it with my daughter a little bit. She likes it. She also gets killed immediately, and she's about the same age now that I was when I first picked it up, so not a surprise there. But You know what I was thinking about as you were talking, Phil? I remembered you're a little bit older than we are, so when Rich and I were playing this, we were 8. I was 8 or so, and you're 7-ish, right?
Yeah.
This game, to me, more than a lot of others, was all about the playground internet, where you were playing this game, your friends were playing this, and it was all about sharing, like, hey man, if you go to this part of the map and you use the candle to burn the bush that's like the fourth bush from the left, there's a staircase under it and you go down, like that kind of sharing. And if you, like, in what limited research I did for this, like Shigeru Miyamoto talked about that as also kind of being something he wanted to happen, where not every mystery would be something the player would or could solve, but collectively with kids talking to each other, they would be telling their friends, hey, try this, do that. And that would enable more progress. And those are a lot of fond memories for me of this game, of just like, yeah, those kinds of conversations about secrets that you would need to find out from somebody else who stumbled into them.
Yeah. It must have been nice to have friends, Doug.
It was.
The first game, I don't believe they ever did this in Nintendo Power, but for the second Zelda, they actually had a lot like the fold-out maps so you could see like every room, every secret, everything. So it didn't come out right away when the game came out, but it came out a little bit later. So the second game was a little less frustrating if you could go, okay, at least I know how to beat this. Because if you died, it would send you all the way back to the beginning, and you have to do all these other things. So that would get a little frustrating. So the cheat codes that Nintendo Power, the maps and everything that helped you cheat was very, very helpful.
Well, Zelda 2, not only is it inscrutable, but Rich, you and I did an episode a while back on Simon's Quest. Mm-hmm. And this shares a lot of DNA with Simon's Quest, even though it's two different developers. But this idea of like going into a village, talking to the villagers, and getting clues that range from being somewhat helpful to like baffling nonsense to being outright lies. That was a big part of it, of trying to figure out what to do and where to go. And so like, just like Simon's Quest, there was a lot of, very strange stuff in that game that some of it's like just translation error stuff. There's a classic image you'll see where Link walks into a house and he talks to the guy there and he just says, I am error.
Yeah.
And I once learned the provenance of like why that's like that, but it's not the developers actually trying to say that. I don't know if it's a translation problem or what, but it's very funny that the guy just says, I am error. And there's things like that throughout the game.
Yeah, that Zelda 2 is, I've beaten it recently on my little mini Super Nintendo where you can do save points. And that was infinitely more fun than playing it as a kid and dying and going all the way to the beginning and then figuring, because you had to do trial and error, but you would start you over so far back that trial and error would get exhausted. I mean, you'd spend all night trying to just do one thing, and then you'd be out of lives, and then you'd have to start.
And the original Legend of Zelda, as does Link's Adventure, Zelda 2, these were NES cartridges that had battery packs on them, so you could save your progress. And talk about being old men, but like that was a big deal, especially for something like these games where it's like you couldn't do this in one sitting unless you were insane. You needed that time to explore, the freedom to die and come back and keep going. That was a huge deal back then.
When you were building up life, you're building up magic, you're building up strength, you're building up all these things, and if you had to start over from that, I mean, those games would literally be impossible,
or at least deeply unpleasant.
Yeah.
Renting games was a much bigger over in America. Were these games that you're talking about, the first two, are they games you both bought and owned?
I didn't. But Rich, you did.
I owned both of them, yeah. But I rented a lot of the games that. In fact, I'm sure we're about to talk to Link to the Past. Like that's how I played that game first. Was I rented it. Because my mom had she was like, you have to rent a game once before you buy it, or else. And the only exception was Street Fighter 2 because I'd played it so much in the arcade that I was like, I know I'm going to like this. But yeah, so the rental thing. I mean, that was like the big deal. Like Friday, you get to go. Mom would take me to go rent a game that I'd get for the whole weekend. Wouldn't have to turn it back in until Monday. That was a huge deal.
Yeah, but the difference with something like Link to the Past is one, if you rented it, somebody else's saves were already there, which you wouldn't really want to pick up and deprive yourself of the game, and you'd feel like a jerk because what if that guy comes back and I've deleted his save? Like that was a problem. But the other issue with rentals is these are not games. I guess you could, if you really decided to make a concerted go of it, you could do it in a weekend. But a normal person would not want to just sit and play only this game for an entire weekend to power through all of it. So you'd either end up renting it for many, many more days than you intended to, at which point you could have just bought it. So renting Link to the Past and the games beyond would be a little more tricky. This is a good segue to Link to the Past, which for a lot of Nintendo's franchises, when the Super Nintendo came along, this was the big thing because it came with Super Mario World. We knew here is the new iteration of this. And for all of the big franchises, you were waiting when's the 16-bit one coming and what's it going to be like? And thankfully for most of the big franchises, for Castlevania and Mega Man and Metroid, all of these games, they did not disappoint. Those are all really, really good. And Link to the Past, is it the single best Zelda game? I don't know. It might be the best 2D Zelda game, but I mean, if we're going to be jerks and argue about it and get angry, I think it's hard to say that one's not in the top 5. It's a very special game.
This is what I warned you about earlier, Doug. Stop saying things. Stop saying stuff that's just you can't do it.
If you want to tell me why I'm an idiot, please send your feedback to. But so Phil, let's talk a little because I know this was one you definitely wanted to talk about, Link to the Past. So you said you saw the initial screen where the Triforce hoves into view, and the Triforce is that's the one ring, essentially, of the Zelda universe. It's this tripartite holy object. There's 3 parts of it. Link has one, Zelda has the other, and the bad guy, Ganon, has the third. And if you put all 3 of them together, you get super powerful, blah, blah, blah. So the people are always trying to get their hands on this MacGuffin. So you see that hove into view, and then you get the title card, and you're off and running for Link to the Past. But tell me about your feelings about this one.
Yeah, I mean, to put this in perspective, you've got to imagine this is what would I have been by then? I don't know, 19, something like that. 20? No, maybe 20. Good God. Oh, so long ago, Doug. You got to put it in a picture that I'm in a shop. Someone's brought this game in to trade in second hand. I've never played it before. I normally, you put the game in, see if it works, which is why I ended up being really good at the very first minute of every single game, because that would be what I would play. You couldn't stand there all day playing games. I mean, everyone's got this romantic vision of what it's like to be running game shops. It's not that romantic. I'm not saying I didn't spend an inordinate amount of time playing games as well. Of course I did. But the vast majority of your time is dealing with customers, cleaning equipment or whatever. So it was always a good test of a game, whether it was any good, if I then forgot where I was and that I was supposed to be dealing with customers, and that I would get sucked into a game and would then take that game home.
Nice.
And that is Zelda is Link to the Past is one of those games and remains to this day. And I did that for the, I don't know, some say the golden age of gaming and of that the 16-bit war. So this was from 92 to 96. I was doing that day in, day out, 7 days a week. And it still remains the game that holds my attention, that takes me to another place, makes me feel safe, you know, all those things that we associate with games, which is, let's face it, why we play them, whether it be to excite us or just to have fun, or two-player game with your friends, all those reasons that we play games. Zelda just, for some reason, encapsulated, I think, everything into one thing. It was adventure. It was using your brain. I mean, it wasn't. Although it's an action game, it's the dungeons, isn't it? I mean, let's face it. That's really, for me, what really sets it apart from other game series, is those dungeons where you've really got to put together all those things that you've learned, all those different items that you've had to get to make this thing go here, fit this thing in there. You know, it's the equivalent of a child's toy where you're trying to get the round thing into the hole and then the square thing into the hole, and it's all very, very satisfying. It's very simple, but you've got to think. It's not just an action game, and there's something very beautiful about a well-made Zelda game, and I think there are very few that I've played that haven't given me that same feeling, that same achievement is very great. It's the winning on a one-armed bandit feeling, where you keep putting in more money, because you're going to find that key to get to that other place. You're going to get to that boss because you've got the right bombs or the whatever. It's, I don't know, it just, Link to the Past is just incredibly satisfying, was easy to pick up for someone like me who hadn't really played any of the sort of RPG, open world. I mean, Rich hit the nail on the head earlier on when he said arcade, and that whole fact that, yeah, of course it's not going to be one that you can easily do on a rental. The whole point of arcade games were that they were meant to be short. You were meant to encouraging you to put 10 pence or 10 cents or whatever it would have been over there into the machine to keep you going. Whereas here suddenly was this game that was ginormous. You had no hope of just sort of playing it in one sitting. You know, you had to keep coming back to it, till you're thinking about it in your sleep and waking up and going, oh yeah, that's how you get through that dungeon. Oh, I've just realised. You know, that's. I think that's why. I think that's why all of them, I think, are successful, because they've managed to somehow keep that same feeling of the amazing dungeons and that sort of thing, but put it into a different perspective. You know, 3D versions and all the other versions that came after it.
Yeah, I think what Link to the Past does well, that a lot of the more successful Zelda titles do, is they are constantly recontextualizing this world they give you. So, for example, in Link to the Past, you'll eventually acquire an item called the hook shot, which is basically like a grappling hook that you fire out in front of you in a straight line. And you can use it sort of offensively to like stun or grab enemies, but its primary use is to allow you to cross gaps that you otherwise could not cross. And so suddenly paths through the world that were previously impassable now become open to you. And so as you go through the world, you are thinking about, so you're constantly kind of roving through this overworld over and over again as you kind of just sweep through it and like, wait, maybe I missed something up here. Let me wander back up that way. And now that I have this tool, maybe there's something I can do on this screen that I couldn't do before. And that will lead to treasure or heart contain, more health, whatever you're looking for. But then Link to the Past has one more trick up its sleeve because it introduces the Dark World. Which is essentially a parallel universe on top of the main map. And you now spend the second half of the game moving back and forth between these two versions of Hyrule. That's the world where it takes place. And in the dark, the most basic iteration of this is like, there's some path that's covered in rocks, but in the dark world, there's no rocks there and I can go through. And so you're looking for the differences between the two to make further progress. And it adds more dungeons onto the game. It extends the life of the game. But again, all of a sudden, now that this thing comes into play, you recontextualize the world yet again. There's another dimension to this world I hadn't thought of. And now I'm looking at everything a different way in terms of how I'm supposed to navigate my way through it. And a lot of the best Zelda games do that. Every time they give you something new, it makes you look at the entire world from a different angle.
Yeah. I mean, being able to create a new world in essentially the same type of game just shows the genius of them, really. I mean, that, like you say, the different items like the hook shot. I think for me, Link to the Past is also one of the ones that set, I think, a lot of precedents for the other games. I know, obviously, that the first one on the NES that we were talking about set the main mold for it. But I think for me, Link to the Past, I think a lot of the items that are within it, a lot of the mechanics that were within it, certainly set a huge sort of precedent for the rest of the series. It's certainly as far as the sort of 2D, top down type view Zeldas. I think without Link to the Past, I'm not sure where the series would be. It seems to be one of those sort of catalyst type episodes of the series.
Yeah, and like I said, again, it's a formula they wouldn't really deviate from too much until Breath of the Wild, which I think there's some great games we need to talk about in between Link to the Past and Breath of the Wild. But this basic formula, which is really just sort of stands on the shoulders of Zelda 1, it kind of just adds more stuff to that formula. But this becomes like Zelda's core identity until I think 2016 or 17 when Breath of the Wild comes out. So yeah. Rich, any favorite like items or memory, things that you remember from these games that you want to talk before we move on to some of the other ones? I remember just finding bombs was such a huge deal. Like, I got a bomb. Bombs are amazing.
Sure. I'll just throw one thing out. In Zelda 2, there's a part where you go to an island maze, and there's these hidden little things that you fall down. They do a really great parody of that in the South Park game, Stick of Truth, later when you go to Canada, and it looks astonishingly similar to Zelda 2 at that point, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that on the South Park episode we did recently. We didn't have time to range that far, but yes, the Canada section of that game is like, it goes from being like, most of that game looks like you are just playing an episode of South Park. Like, it looks it is indistinguishable from the show visually, but then you get up to Canada and it is 8-bit and weird. And well, you know what they're like with their flapping heads and beady eyes and such.
I just appreciated the Zelda shout out. They're like, we know what games inspired us, we're gonna give it back to you.
Yeah. I just remember there were a handful of items that were of such limited use in those games where it was like, oh, I've got this little like item that lets me cross one square of water. And I'm like, man, Or like you get like the other one that was annoying was, so you get this candle that allows you to send out a little fireball that will burn like a bush or an enemy. But when you have the red candle, it'll only let you do one. And then you have to leave the screen and come back to do it again. And later on, you can get the blue candle, which is an infinite number of these. But like, fuck you, red candle. That's so annoying. Like, I don't know who thought that would be like, this would be really fun. Like, we'll only give you one. So every time you want to reuse it, you've got to go in and out. And if you did that, it would reset the tile. So like, if you are like, for these kids that would tell you like, hey, you have to burn the fifth bush on the left. The only way to discover that for yourself is like, I remember, I don't know how much time I spent going to a square, burning one thing, leaving, coming back, burning the thing next to it, and just like one by one, hoping something would happen. That was, they improved on that kind of stuff going forward.
Doug, if you ever do merch for Nostalgia Arcanum, one of your t-shirts should be "Fuck You, Red Candle."
That's a good idea. There's some "Fuck You, Red Candle." I'm sure that wouldn't at all run afoul of a Nintendo trademark somewhere. They wouldn't.
Right.
Mad about that.
I'm sure we're talking about this overall with the other games too, because I know it's present in all of them. But one of the things that stood out in a lot of the games in these Nintendo that we still talk about today was the visuals and the music. And the music for Zelda is instant. I can hear two notes from either the first two Zelda games, and I'm sure it's true for the ones going past that. That it's you're just like, that's Zelda, got it.
Well, that theme, the main like Zelda theme, is one of the best pieces of video game music of all time. Written by Koji Kondo, who did all the music for the Mario series as well. And what I read today was interesting. The plan was to use Ravel's Bolero, this classical music, which I can drop in a clip of that so you can hear what it's like. It's too like peaceful and slow, and the Zelda theme is so much more rousing. Like when that really kicks in as like kind of like a hero, it's like a John Williams march when you hear it. And
yes, it's epic. Yeah. And the sounds, like Rich was saying, that when you find something in it, he does the putting his hand up in the air, showing that he's got it, or puts both hands up to show that he's got it. Although the sounds and an opening of the caskets and things like that. All those little bits are incredibly emotive. Yeah. I love that.
And it's interesting, they've really kept that part of the series' identity, because as much as they've added interesting music here and there along the way, a lot of those core themes are like you're still going to hear them in every Zelda game. You're even in the more like sparse kind of tinkly piano music they use for the last two, there's still those themes are still in that music. You'll hear those motifs, leitmotifs, and that march in and of itself alone is like almost all you need. And the only reason they didn't go with Ravel's Bolero is because technically the copyright on it hadn't expired in 1986. So they're like, Koji, you got to come up with something new. And he just went, okay. And then came up with this like almost immediately. Like just somehow this melody just came to him.
Koji's Bolero.
Let's talk a little bit about Ocarina of Time, because yet again, like if you're going to have the online argument about which one is the best one, this one will usually hover near the top. People hold this one in very high regard, and this is the one. This is the first foray into 3 dimensions on the Nintendo 64, and this again set a template that they're really still using today in terms of like how do we get Link to interact with a 3-dimensional environment. Some of the stuff you do in Tears of the Kingdom, the most recent one, and Breath of the Wild, are still, kind of iterating on this basic idea that, just as we did an episode on Mario 64 not that long ago, and just with that game, it's like somehow they figured out the exact correct way to translate this formula into 3 dimensions and have it still feel like Zelda.
Yeah, I think for me, this one is one I really played on the remade version on the 3DS. Yeah, 3DS. That was the version I mainly played this one on. What an amazing game. Yeah, I checked Metacritic before we came in. It's still number 1. It's still like the top game in the universe. And, having played it, I'm really not surprised. I mean, it is very, 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 very good. But yeah, my main experience of it was playing it on the 3DS, which apparently, I think they revised, was it the Water Temple? Or
I know they did something to try and mitigate that, because that is a notoriously, it's not a hard level in terms of difficulty, but it is very annoying because it involves a lot of like kind of trial and error and backtracking. Basically what you're doing inside this dungeon is you're raising and lowering the water level to block or gain access to certain pathways. But when you flip the switch, you can't always immediately tell what was done. And then you have to work your way all the way back to one of these switches. Like, oh, no, that wasn't the one I wanted. I wanted the other one. You have to go back and undo all these steps. Like, it's really onerous and, a huge stain on an otherwise very well regarded and fun game. I don't know exactly what they did to try and, improve upon it, but I know that in one of these subsequent releases they did something to try and make it better. I've heard it's not enough to fix the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it was the Water Temple. Yeah, I think it was the Water Temple. I'm pretty 90% sure that was what they changed. But yeah, I mean, another amazing entry. I mean, like I say, just checking that now. There's about 8 or 9 Zelda titles in like the top 100 on this on the Metacritic thing. I mean, it's an amazing series, and the fact that I think they took the time. I mean, Nintendo are very, very good at that. I mean, which is why particularly back then you didn't have any updates or anything. Games had to be right. But this really, I think the Zelda series and things like the Mario series really, really demonstrated their ability to make damn sure that the game was extremely good. And they took their time to make the game, which is why you often only maybe got one game per machine, although they ended up reusing the engine on this, didn't they? They made the follow-up on the N64.
Yeah, Majora's Mask is the same general engine. It's a different type of game. But so just to sort of talk one thing about Ocarina, as I said before, a big part of, I think, what these games do well is they give you something that recontextualizes the world. And instead of space, which is what Link to the Past is, right? You're dealing with essentially two different spaces on top of each other. Here you're dealing with two different times. You are time traveling back and forth from the Link's present as a young kid to him like 10 years or something in the future where he is older. And this introduces elements of causality puzzles, right? The classic one being something like you plant a seed in the younger version, you time travel to the future. Now that's a tree and you can climb up it to get to somewhere. So that is a huge way they recontextualize the world and exploration. The other thing they do in Ocarina of Time is they give you Epona, the horse, which, the world is big enough now and open. Like when you're on Hyrule Field, when you first walk onto that, I mean, and by today's standards, not much of anything. It's a big empty grass polygon. But you step out onto this, you get the horse, which you can summon, with your ocarina or whatever. You blow a whistle, the horse is there, and you go riding off over these fields, and it's so epic to just do that as Link. Like, yes, I am. It ups the feeling of like Dungeons and Dragons type fantasy to be on a horse riding, past all these goblins and stuff. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the few, and this is a confession now that's going to annoy everyone. Like I said about earlier on, talking about Zelda's always dodgy ground. I've completed very few of them because I'm too old, and the problem with Zelda is if you aren't playing it regularly and you go away, I don't know, like go and do something else and then come back, you forget completely what it was that you were doing and where you were supposed to be going. As the bigger game, as they got bigger and bigger, as you say, this has got to the point where you need a horse to get around the place. I always forget where it is now, where I was and what I was doing when I come back to it. But I think that's my problem. That's not the game. That's me. That's my problem. My ability to remember. But I think that this was one of the few that I have actually finished. One of the few Zelda games I put the effort and that time in to complete it. I think having it on the handheld, having it on 3DS, made that a lot easier because it's so much friendlier in the sense of being able to pick up and play, whereas using the TV, setting your console up or whatever can sometimes take that extra 5 minutes too long that you just can't be bothered to do it. But just flipping open the screen on the 3DS meant this was a game which I got completely hooked into and did complete. It really is one of the few Zeldas, even though I like all the Zeldas, played loads of them, I actually can't think of many that I completed, but this one, I enjoyed everything about it. I mean, it's just I'm really not surprised it's at number one. Rich,
did you ever muck around with any of the 3D Zeldas at all?
No, I never owned a Nintendo system after the Super Nintendo, so I didn't really. I've seen some walkthroughs and stuff. I mean, they look gorgeous, and it's funny that you talk about that, Phil, because it's on my list to one day just get like an emulator and just play all the Zelda games that I've never played. But, I know it's also going to be like, I need to take a week off and just do a staycation and just play through every Zelda game I can because they're monsters. They're huge games.
And they've gotten a whole lot bigger recently as well. I do want to touch on Majora's Mask a little bit, which I didn't play. I've never played Majora's Mask. I didn't own an N64. I played all the way through Ocarina of Time, emulating it on my PC in college, which was fun because I was able to add whatever soundtrack I wanted. But yeah, Majora's Mask, the gimmick there is you're stuck in a time loop that after 3 days, the moon will crash into the earth. And so the game is a lot of you're rewinding time over and over again to experience different parts of the game and kind of do what you need to do to avert that crisis. But again, they found an interesting way, again, to put a gimmick into the world that kind of rearranged things. But after that, things started... Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing we should talk about before things change is Wind Waker for the GameCube. This is the one where Link looks like a cartoon. This is my favorite true open world Zelda game. You are sailing, but you're on the basically water world. It's an ocean. All of Hyrule is buried beneath the waves, except for tiny little islands that were mountaintops that you navigate between. And for my money, this is my favorite 3D Zelda. It's cute. The music is great. The story's great. The way it's all animated is incredible. And for some reason, people lost their goddamn minds the first time they debuted this because they were like, where's my like gritty adult looking Link? And it's like, did you play the other ones? Did you remember what he looked like?
That was weird.
Yeah, people really lost their minds over this in a big way that
very strange.
I can't feel that invested about any fictional property to that degree. But then to also go like, dude, he's like the most adorable little sprite you've ever seen up until the 3D ones. So it was weird that they lost their minds. But I love Wind Waker.
Yeah, I really love it. I really loved it too. I mean, for me, because by that time I'd got out of the games world, so I never owned a GameCube. I do now, but so I didn't experience it. I know this is a bit like with the one we were just talking about. I ended up playing on the 3DS. This one I played the HD remake on the Wii U. So using the gamepad for aiming and things like that, which is obviously different than the GameCube version. But yeah, I love Wind Waker. I thought it was great. But that's really weird, even though I wasn't in the game scene at that time. Even I heard about people bitching about Cartoon Link. It's like, what are you all on about?
Well, Rich, did you ever play any of the Super Smash Brothers games? I know you like fighting games, but you said you didn't own... Yeah. Yeah, so one thing they did with the Super Smash Brothers entry, which is a franchise where it's like Street Fighter, except it's all Nintendo characters that fight each other. It's a lot of fun. But after this, you can play as regular-looking Link or Toon Link as a character. They gave you both, and they play differently, like they're two different characters, quote-unquote, in the game. But it was really funny the way they sort of like acknowledged that and responded to it, because the next one we got after this was Twilight Princess, where it's like, no, we'll give you the realistic looking Link again. Sorry, everybody. But Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, to me, which followed it, are both kind of like, this is where the formula really starts to show its age a little bit. It's kind of just more of the same.
Yeah, see again, it's all about experience, isn't it? It's about where you come in and out of these things. For me, as I was just saying, I got out of gaming around the time that the PlayStation sort of came in, so sort of 96-ish. I fell out of love of gaming for various different reasons, which I shan't bore you all with here, and didn't get back into it until the DS and the Wii. So by the time I got the Wii, it was Twilight Princess, isn't it? Yeah, right. I'm getting confused now.
This is one where Link's a werewolf.
So that was my first reintroduction to Zelda, and I was completely blown away, and I really liked that one. I in fact got the HD version of that. I think it was on the Switch. I don't know, they're on the shelf there somewhere. But yeah, so that was my sort of reintroduction to Zelda, and I thought Twilight Princess was amazing, but there we are.
I mean, there's a baseline level of competency to these games. Like, they're not neither Twilight Princess nor Skyward Sword are what I would call bad games, but they're not fresh to me. Like they again, it's more, It's a little more of the same, which is why I think people were so blown away by Breath of the Wild. which is the first one released on the Switch and goes back to that feeling of the first one, because they do something, they finally changed the formula, which is normally the way these things work is you progress, you go to a dungeon, you get a new item. That new item becomes the new hotness for a while that helps you get through a part of the game. It literally is a key. You need to unlock part of the game, and then you get the next one of these things. Breath of the Wild just basically drops you into this huge world and says, we're going to give you all the tools you need at the beginning of the game. Here they are. Here's the 6 different tools in your toolkit. Now go explore and do whatever it is you think you want to do. And so there is a story. There are some minor dungeons in it. So a lot of like small puzzly dungeons, that's like a mini.
Yeah, it's sort of temples or something.
Yeah, right. There's like 120 of them that are like mini dungeons. Mostly, again, puzzles, kind of physics-based puzzles to solve. But it's all, again, like it's a world. It's a set of physics you manipulate to do what you want, and that's kind of it. Just wander and go. And I liked the ambition of it. I don't particularly care for Breath of the Wild to some degree, because I found it, there's certain things they do in the game that are a little annoying, that friction that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Number one, the breaking weapons is unnecessary. You have to constantly pick up new weapons.
Yeah, drove me mad.
They wear and break. Not helpful.
No.
2, the world is too fucking big. It takes forever to try, and your only verb is to trudge. Like, they already had it. You could blow a whistle and get a horse in Ocarina. You can't do that in Breath of the Wild. You have to go through a whole side quest just to be able to have a horse, which you're not going to bother with. So it makes traversal a little annoying. The only thing you can do is go to the tops of a very, very tall towers and then glide a good distance to where you want to go. But it's not this. So that really rubbed me the wrong way as well. And the lack of like big dungeons was kind of a problem for me, but they fixed that to a large extent with Tears of the Kingdom, which once again recontextualized the world by saying it's the exact same world as Breath of the Wild, but there's an entire world up in the sky you can fly up into, and an entire world underground that you can go down into. So you have these 3 layers on this gigantic world and more interesting ways of interacting with it.
Right. Now, see, I've not played the new one, but Breath of the Wild, and it's almost exactly the same story as what I was just saying about, was it Ocarina of Time on the 3DS and things like that. I played a lot of Breath of the Wild because it was on the Switch, because I could play it, just pick up and play at any time. So I got into it quite a lot at the beginning. I mean, with these things, it's just there to Switch. I probably could look, but they store, don't they, how many hours you've spent on it, and it's a lot. I can't remember what, but it was a lot. But I still maintain, still say that same old man thing that I said earlier on. That is, now I haven't played it for ages. It's almost frightening to turn it on, because I know I'm just going to be like, what was I doing? It's like someone giving you a book and saying, I'm going to fan through the pages of the book, just say stop. And you read from there and hope you understand what the hell's going on in the book. And you won't, guaranteed you won't know what's going on. You won't know who any of these characters are. You won't know who did it, who did what. And I find it so frustrating that I can't go back to this game that I was really enjoying for 40, 50 hours or however long I played it for. And there's no dungeons. I completely agree with everything you just said and your analysis of it, Doug. It hasn't got that thing that made me like Zelda in the first place, but I did enjoy what I played of it. It's not a Zelda game. There you go, I said it. Everyone's going to hate us. Everyone just turned off. To me, it's not a Zelda game. It's not what I enjoyed about the other Zelda games.
See, this is why you need to play Tears of the Kingdom, I think, because it really it fixes that. But like what these do bring is like, this is the apotheosis of like that idea of I'm going to wander around and find a lake or a cave or whatever that Miyamoto started with. Now it's in like a full 3D realized gigantic world. Like that is exactly the joy of that game, is like, I don't know if I need to know where I'm going, because if I just wander off in any given direction, I'm going to find something intriguing. There's something on the horizon that is, you know, like, hey, what's that sparkly little thing over there? I bet that's something. And it is. The other thing that Tears brought in is this really crazy physics stuff, where you basically, they give you all these kinds of items that do different things, or objects of the world. Like it can be something as simple as like a big rectangle of wood, a rock, but then there's things like fans that blow air, or, you know, little jets of fire and stuff. And you have this tool that lets you glue anything together any way you want. And now it's this like crazy physics-based thing where it's like, you watch what people make in the engine of this game, and they're like, here, I made a mech by gluing all of this stuff together. It's like you basically mated The Legend of Zelda with Legos. And it's like, oh my God, like the things you can make and what they will do. Like people have come up with all kinds of, like I can barely make, when I've played, it's like, here, I can put 4 wheels on a thing, and now I have a little cart that goes a small distance. Like that's what I can grok. But like people make rockets and like stuff, like just crazy things. And I haven't gotten that far into the game yet, but like that tool alone opens up so many possibilities for expression and play. And it absolutely changes the way you work, you go through the world, because the developers might kind of say like, here, we're going to put this thing up on a rock, and Link, who can climb, but maybe he can't climb to this, right? There's no easy way to get to this thing where it is. And they just leave it up to you and go like, I bet if you're clever enough, you can figure out a way to get to this thing. And since we're just giving you the laws of physics within the game, anything goes. And so you watch what people come up with, and it's like, hey, if that's how you solve that problem, great, enjoy. You know, that's good enough. And that, to me, that was just a brilliant innovation. And again, a way to sort of take the spirit of the original games and bring it forward. And so like, I could see easily I've played a bunch of it, but like if I had the time, I would lose myself in that thing and do all kinds of weird stuff. Just wandering around, forget the plot, forget what you're supposed to do. Like this is about that sense of wandering adventure.
Yeah. I mean, it's created a whole subset of YouTube videos of just people saying, yeah, I connected this, and this together, and if you jump up at the right time and drop a bomb underneath yourself, and it propels you up into the sky, and then you use this thing, and then they're over the other side of the map in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, the way people have figured out how to manipulate this is incredible, but also the fact that the game allows for it. The developers want you to do this, right? That it's like, great, you know, we are glad that, you know, you figured out how to exploit all of these things in this interesting way. You know, you feel like an inventor when you come up with these things.
Yeah, I think it's me saying that, I can't go back to it because I don't know where I am. It's because I don't want that experience, not the experience I want from Zelda. But by the virtue of the fact that I played it for however long it is I played it and did enjoy it, it is obviously a very good game, although I wouldn't have spent that much time on it. But it hasn't I don't want to buy Tears of the Kingdom. It hasn't set the precedent for me that I say, I've got to get Tears of the Kingdom because I really, really enjoyed Breath of the Wild. It hasn't done that for me. It has left me with a yearning for a basic, that's probably not the right word to call it, but a traditional perhaps Zelda game with the dungeons, etc., etc. I mean, a game I really, really enjoyed, again, I don't think we've mentioned this one yet, was a handheld, which is the follow-up to Link to the Past. Is it Link Between Worlds?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that one.
The 3DS. I mean, wow. I mean, that was exactly the sort of game that I would want, and ticked every box for me. Amazing game.
Yeah, there's room for both. I would say if you're the feeling you have about Breath of the Wild, or the feelings I had, were kind of some reservations about it. For me, Tears answered enough of those things. It was like, good. Now there's actually like intrigue. There's more to do. There's more more places to go. More interesting things are happening. More interesting ways of doing things. So for me, it was like, I wouldn't want to jump back into Breath of the Wild. I'm happy to have Tears. That's what I need. That's giving me filling all those gaps for me. But Rich, I want to get back to you for a little bit and say, I realize you have been kind of checked out of modern Zelda stuff for a while. Or does any of that stuff feel like it pulls at you, or are you just like, I'm good with my original?
Well, I mean, I'll always love the originals, but no, as I was saying, like so what happened to me is I went away from gaming for a long time, and I missed a lot of stuff, and I've only recently gotten back into it in the last couple of years. So I'm kind of playing the games that are old hat to a lot of people, and they're brand new to me. So it is on my list at some point of like, I want to get a system or an emulator or put on PC or whatever. I want to like just go, okay, all these Zelda games that I've missed, that I've heard so much about. Every time they come out, my friends would talk about them, and I've seen, I've been just looking at different as you've been talking about games, been going on YouTube, just seeing the aesthetics of them all. I'm like, yeah, I love to play all of these just to give them a shot. Don't know if I like them or not, but I like the Zelda lore. And I just like the general, medieval-esque fantasy world, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'm absolutely looking forward to get lost in these.
Have you guys ever looked at the quote-unquote official Zelda timeline?
Oh, God. Doug, Matt, don't do it, man.
These games were never meant to be, actually take place on some kind of a sensible continuum or timeline. And so the fact that they retroactively tried to explain which one takes place before the other one, and it turns out because of Ocarina of Time, they decided there's 3 different branching timelines. Here's the timeline where Link fails, and here's the timeline where he succeeds, and there's the original Zelda games take place, I think, in the world where Link from Ocarina of Time failed. He's not the same character either. They try to give this idea that unto every age a Link is born, so it's not the same actual
That's
person.
A good cop out, isn't it?
You can totally ignore it. It's kind of a fun exercise, but it's nonsense. But I do have the Hyrule Historia book that it is in, which is a beautiful piece of just an art book of showing all these gorgeous drawings and things of all the characters and monsters and stuff. A way of kind of talking about the artistry of the series, it's a great book. You can just take the pages with the timeline and rip them out and forget about them.
Sure,
but otherwise, it's a wonderful book, which I would recommend if you're a fan of the series. Go pick that up.
Isn't Skyward Sword going to be the first game or something?
Yes,
is that right?
That is canonically the first story in the timeline so far, because it deals with the events that lead to the creation.
They rolled
of Ganon.
a dice, didn't they?
They could have.
They just threw a dart at a board or something.
Skyward Sword.
We've got to pick one of them as the first. Let's go for that one.
Yeah, it's meant to be the origin story for a lot of stuff, but okay, I didn't need that. The lore of Zelda is better the less of it you get, It's one of those kind of things where it's like it's about a mood.
Have we mentioned Minish Cap yet?
We have not. I haven't played a lot of those. Was it the Four Swords or some of those other ones?
Yeah. Well, those were all sort of multiplayer, which I never ever experienced them as multiplayer. I think I've played them, but the Minish Cap I really enjoy. Again, I'm going to have to just say it, aren't I? Really, I really like the handheld versions of Zelda. They seem to be where I enjoy playing it most. But yeah, Minish Cap, great, really, really good. And the hook with that one is that you're tiny. You get sort of shrunk down, and you can go in through all these tiny little gaps in things. And I think there's a sort of wind tool. I think where you can sort of get on rafts, and you can use sort of, I can't remember, was it a fan or some sort of device? It might even be the helper, because I think the helper in this one is his hat.
Is it Tingle?
It's actually the cap. Is this little sort of it looks like a sort of bird, a green bird that he's got on his head. And I like Minish Cap. It's not a long one. It's quite a good short traditional type Zelda one to play. If anyone fancies playing one, isn't too long. If they're a miserable old man like me and doesn't want to play 60 hours of a game.
Well, it's funny. We've now touched on most of the entries in this series, and to me, what's kind of interesting about them is the design philosophy that they embody, which has been copied and imitated and stuff. But it's one of those things where it feels like even going all the way back to the first one, they created just like a template or like a skeleton for like what this type of game should be, and like. It's kind of the reason these games remain at the vanguard when they should be kind of petering out. Like it's like they find ways to go like, no. We'll show you how it's done. We'll put a Zelda out here for you all to look at and go, oh shit, why didn't we think of that? And it's despite the fact that these games don't have the strongest narratives, they still remain like this, like. This and Mario still, all these years later, kind of remain like the key games as others kind of come and go.
Yeah, totally. Well, like I said about that, the Metacritic Top 100, it's got at least 6, 7, or 8 that I just briefly looked at when I looked at it on my phone there. I mean, it's hard to believe that if you look at the sort of indie titles that you often see coming out, there's so many you just think, wow, that's a Zelda game. That looks like, that mechanic or that thing. They're massively influential to a huge swathe of gaming. I mean, I still, like I said earlier on, I never really got into the sort of the RPG, the sort of Japanese RPG type stuff. So for me, Zelda is about as far as it goes into that sort of area. But I see it so often now in other games that are coming out now that you just can't help but think, yeah, this is so Zelda-like. I wonder what the landscape would be like without it.
Yeah, what Miyamoto did with both Super Mario and Zelda is he created these worlds that so many people like that have been like, oh, I want to play with that, and they've just ran with it every time. And the staying power of how they're still so relevant is pretty amazing. I don't know if y'all know, but I just looked it up because I was curious. I guess on the heels of the success of the Super Mario Brothers movie, they are coming out with working on a feature-length Zelda movie to supposedly come out in the next couple of years. So that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know what they'll do with that, because I think Zelda kind of works best in kind of its quieter moments. And I don't know what again, we've got this whole timeline of different Zelda games with slightly different personality. So which, are they doing something totally new? Like, is it going to be like the world of Wind Waker? Is it going to be the world of Ocarina? Like, what Zelda are we even getting with something like that? But I think it's one of those things where, like, yeah, there's a reason that timeline feels irrelevant, because it's like each Zelda game, it's like it's not about the characters as much as it is about like the gameplay itself. Where, like, how many platformers have you played where it was like, oh, it's like Mario, but a little less than? And here It's like, how many adventure games have you played where it's like, it's basically Zelda, but, with a different coat of paint on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be voiced by Chris Pratt, isn't it?
Oh, of course, it has to be by law.
I hope he's Italian.
They're paying millions and millions and millions to voice a character that doesn't speak.
Yeah,
That's a job I want.
yeah, it's surprising they've done, even in the modern ones, they've done fairly little voice acting. There's a little bit now in the two Switch ones, but like generally, to the extent these characters vocalize at all, it's usually just like, it's like those kinds of noises. But, and even, or like Zelda or the other characters, it's like, ooh, but nothing beyond these like little noises that they make.
I wish you could all see that happen with Doug with his shirt off going, ooh.
I'm not putting, I didn't put it back on because we've been talking. It's hot here.
Playing with his master sword.
Yep. Do you, I'm just curious, do you have any like favorite side characters or things from the series other than like Link and Zelda and Ganon themselves?
Well, we haven't mentioned Tingle.
Oh God. I think it's his noise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. He's in the room, everybody.
Or is that Beetle? There's that Beetle guy with the big nose that's like he's like the shopkeep that you meet in Wind Waker. He makes a noise
the guy
like
who
that.
delivers the post. Isn't it that delivers the mail?
Isn't that Tingle? I don't remember. It's been a while.
There's a guy, isn't that might be the one on the Wii. He comes running. He comes to find you. He runs everywhere, and he's got a bag of mail.
Yeah, that's
on
Beetle.
his back.
He's in a few of the games. He's a shopkeep.
Yeah, there's a few sort of recurring characters, isn't there?
I like the Gorons. They're kind of cool. These giant rock people that live in the lava. They're cute.
Yeah. And chickens for some reason.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the chickens.
Are they
Holy
cuckoos?
shit.
Are they called? Is that right?
Yeah, I think they're called cuckoos or something, or cuckoos.
Cuckoos, something like that.
Yeah,
but they're chickens. Everyone knows they're chickens. We thought, no, we'll give them a completely different name.
Yeah, Rich, you didn't get far enough into Link to the Past probably to have this happen, but Philip, you want to tell them what the deal is with the chickens?
I'm not sure this is a sort of podcast where I want to tell people what we do with chickens.
I'm sorry, what you do with chickens in the game? What do you do with chickens in the game?
Oh,
Phil?
in the game, Doug. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Don't Google that, everyone. Well, you can kick them and they get annoyed and then they all gang up and chase you. I can't remember.
If you're a sadist.
Was that Link to the Past?
Yeah, it's in Link to the Past. Like they're wandering around the little village, and if you want to, you can whack them with your sword or whatever, and you don't think anything of it. But if you do it enough times, and it's more than you'd think, like you'd have to kind of go out of your way to really smack the chickens enough time for this to happen. But all of a sudden, like the music will change, and a flock of them will descend on you and try to kill you. Until you run away, which is just a great little like flourish they put into the game to be funny. But I believe they try and like make nods to this in some of the subsequent titles. But it's a great moment when the first time it happens, you're like, I guess I have been a dick to these chickens. I'm sorry. They finally, they are coming home to roost, literally. Yeah, it's a fun
the chickens.
There you are, kids. Don't choke your chicken. They will
there it
get
is.
their own
Yes,
back.
That's the lesson of this whole podcast.
Well, I can't think of anything more to say about Zelda after that. No, Rich, I'll turn it over to you. Your feelings on why this series has endured for almost 40 years.
I have a very specific memory of being 7 years old, and it was starting to storm, and it was starting to get dark, and my parents, I don't know where we were, but we were driving home, and I just remembered it's a rainy night. And I'm home alone. I am just going to play Zelda until I fall asleep. And there was several nights like that, as a kid. And there was something about that game. There's a lot of games that, I love. We've talked about plenty on this podcast before, but there was some of that game that I don't know. It just felt like I wanted to live in Hyrule, and I think that that the lore and everything. We don't care about the story, but we care about the aesthetics. We care about the world that it built, and it built a great world, and people have clearly added onto that world in ways that have been satisfying ever since.
Phil?
Yeah, I can only really echo what Rich just said. It's that world. It's a world you want to be in. And you want to remain in, or like your favourite film series or favourite television series. It's like, stepping through the door at Cheers and everyone saying your name as you walk in. It is a very, very inviting place. They've managed to create adventure games, which, yes, are full of danger and things like that, but you're not on edge playing it. There is something heroic about it, and you feel you are that character Link, and that you are achieving something. And yeah, they're just games that you come away from feeling good about yourself, and not constantly dying like in Mario, and you just get annoyed and want to throw your controller across the room. It's just a fun world you want to stay in.
I think of the first time I got my hands on the cartridge, that saw that it was this bright, shiny gold object, it immediately said, like, this is special. Whatever is in here is it takes balls to make something that looks like it's made out of gold and go, like, you're going to like this. And to me, the feeling with every Zelda game, even the ones that I have criticisms of or I think are imperfect in some way, like, they're still made at such an enormously high level of competency and polish that that when you play it, you are getting a premier experience from like one of the best teams in the industry, that no matter, even the weakest Zelda game is probably going to be leaps and bounds better than almost anything you play that year. And there's something about, as you guys both touched on, like the kind of the world that's so inviting, you're just waiting to be explored, and that feeling of what's just over the horizon, and then the empowerment as you work your way through the game and become more competent at navigating it, the gathering of more tools and things to become more powerful within it. There's really not any other series quite like this. It's almost like, again, like you couldn't have another Zelda because we already have one. Like, just give me another one. Like, whatever the follow-up from Tears of the Kingdom is, I'll probably buy it day one, because I know that whatever it is, it's going to give me what I want out of a video game. Like, it's going to give me that experience of being the hero, almost certainly better than anybody else is going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a good place to leave it. So, Rich, if people want to find you and the cool things you do, where do they look?
If you want to take improv classes, which are online, so you can take from anywhere in the world that has an internet connection, go to richbakercoaching.com or follow Rich Baker Coaching on Instagram or Facebook. And
Phil, tell the audience about the Spectrum Days podcast and everything you do.
Yeah, if you want to find us, it's Spectrum Days, Games We Played. We're on YouTube and all the usual podcast things. If you want to listen to two middle-aged men go on about games that they might or might not remember and then play them and go, oh yeah, we didn't remember it at all, it's nothing like we actually remember, then we're the podcast for you. And I want to give a little shout out to Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass on the DS, which I don't think we mentioned, which are actually really cool handheld games. And if you've never played any of the Zelda games before, why have you been listening to this, for one thing? And you should play one. I think you'll be hooked like we are.
Yeah, there's a reason these are, again, like at the forefront of any games. Even people who haven't played games have heard of Zelda for a good reason.
Yeah,
so, because they're big fans of F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife, of course, for whom
yes,
his name.
Oh, Matt. Oh, Doug, I was waiting to say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I took it from you.
That's my fauvorite bit of trivia.
Yeah, and the F. Scott Fitzgerald game is just not very good. It's press B to drink, and it's not. Yeah, it's not great.
And you always die.
And you always die. So, if you like this show, of course, go online wherever you found it and drop a review, and drop a review for Spectrum Days as well. Reviews really help podcasts get found by new listenership, and also really good is just telling a friend. Word of mouth is very much appreciated. If you want to get in touch with us, we're on all the major social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and BlueSky, and TikTok. So go to any of those, find us, and say hi, and whatever else it is you want to say, and tell me why I'm wrong and which entry is in fact the best. But please, at least 5 paragraphs. I want lots of text and some evidentiary support for your argument, because I got time to read. Yeah, please do. But please do get in touch with us. We do actually really love when you write back to us. That does my heart good. So appreciate that. Coming up next on the podcast is, as I said, our big 100th episode on Friends. I'm really looking forward to that. I believe after that, we're doing another two-parter on our favorite movies, this time of the aughts. Last time we did that for the 90s, but this time we're doing it for the aughts. And lots of other fun stuff coming along after that. So, Rich, Phil, thanks again for dropping by. This is a lot of fun to talk about Zelda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, so until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
Young warrior clad in green, hears a princess distant scream. Armed with a sword and a shield, some bombs and a flute, the legend of a mute. Link cannot speak, all he does is shriek when he swings a sword or falls off his horse in a pit or lava. Stopping to hack at the grass to find a rupee. No urgency, the princess, so distraught. But first, he'll smash pots and throw a chicken, or maybe 3, till they gang up in a flock and kill me. Hero who can travel through time, but he's at his best doing side quests. Sorry, Zelda, this dude wants some milk, so I get him milk.